You're listening to the Totally Indian Football Show by Humans of Indian Football.
Welcome to a brand new episode of the Totally Indian Football Show. I'm your host Suju, and today we have two of our expert panelists on the show, and we have Arko joining us back after a break, and probably he'll have some updates from his break as well. But before we get kick-started with the topics that we have for today, let me welcome both of them. Arko, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Siju. It's good to be back.
So, how was your week? The break?
Really good. I went to the heart of culture. I went to Meghalaya and I love the football there, and the football also hopefully loves me back. But I mean, mixed feelings because the state once known for producing great players, Eugene, and has been now going through tough times. Especially because it's a tourism run state.
I think we'll come to that in a bit. Before that, let me also welcome Sandeep Menon. Welcome to the show, Sandeep.
Hi guys, how are you?
All well. Sandeep is pretty much gearing up for his big day next week.
Yeah, I'll be going home on a break. Similar to Arko, but much different from what he actually went for. Yeah, I'll be going on a small break from next week.
Yeah, I think probably we'll reveal that by the end of the show. Now let me come to Arko, and we had planned to start the show from getting updates from Shillong, as he mentioned that he was in Meghalaya, and he was talking about how it's unfortunate. Yes, the state was known for a lot of things, and especially the love for football. That we don't have a club from there and playing in I-League or ISL for that matter. But Arko, you can now continue with your updates.
Yeah. I mean, all I was just saying was that used to be 3 I-League clubs from there. There are no I-League clubs now. But apart from that, also just football itself has taken a hit because, football essentially in that part of the world is run via disposable income, which is collected from the community donations and all of that. So, I mean, just to look at that and, just to see them really, really stare down the barrel, and the SPL is not happening again this year. So there are problems obviously within football, but I know that they'll always find a way. They always try and find a way, and we can only hope that. But all the major clubs now are either on a hiatus or have shut down operations. So that's really sad to see.
That means there's literally no footballing action happening in Shillong at the moment.
Maybe your what do you call as Cape tournaments or para tournaments or locality tournaments, but nothing professional under the ambit of the Shillong Sports Association or the Meghalaya Football Association as such. No.
Oh, okay. Well, that's definitely sad news coming from one of the hotbeds of Indian football. Well, hopefully we get things started from there as well, and we may see more clubs and more young players emerging from that state. Let's move on with what we have to discuss today, and we don't have a specific theme or topic because we are looking back at a week that was in ISL and I-League, some great encounters, some great matches, which has kind of turned the table here and there. Maybe not so much in the first position. Because Mumbai City looks like in ISL, they have kind of cemented their first position in the points table, but it's very unpredictable, and that's what we've been talking about since the time that we started this podcast as well, that this season is going to be very unpredictable. But there's a lot of battle happening from the first, second, ATK is there, but ATKMB is there, but thereafter, there are ups and downs between the teams. So looking back at the ISL week that went by, we had some great matches to watch, some great contests, and I think probably if I have to start with, I'll start with BFC. Sandeep, I'll start with you with this. They lost to KBFC 1-2, late in winner by KP Rahul, and then they drew 1-1 against Odisha FC. So really, they are not looking very great. Do you still see them making it to the top 4?
So if they do make it to the top four, I think it is more due to the fact that the other teams around them have been inconsistent than themselves being good enough. And yeah, they just continue to struggle. It seems like every game we find something new that they have, like some new issues. Initially, it was the fact that there was no strikers to finish. They were not playing well, so Musa changed the system into sort of a 4-4-2 of sorts. And then we saw an improvement against Blasters, but again, their defense was not that good. They sort of switched off a couple of times, which ended with with the goals and things. And then afterwards, again, he reverted back to a different sort of a shape. Again, within the confines of a two up top, Suresh out wide, Clayton out wide, and this time we saw Jerry absolutely rip apart the left side. That Parag, he's good going forward. He has to learn defensively, but at the same time, you can't have Clayton as a wide player because he does not track back. So they focused on that side. The goal came from that side. Jerry should have put the game to bed also. And at the other end, they continue to miss presentable chances and continue to only largely create chances from corners and free kicks and throw-ins. So it's become like a template. They look sort of like a glorified Real Kashmir in some sense. So all those are there, and then they're trying to fix those. And then now you have Deshaun Brown, who he made some comments the other day during press conference, and I asked him this question. He spoke about how they are a team who likes to go wide and put the crosses in, but unfortunately the crosses are not great. So that's also a damning indictment from a player who's left them. And then there is obviously the situation of Pratik Chaudhary, who Naushad Musa admitted that is not a player suited for the team, the way they play their football and things. So yeah, we always go back to recruitment and things like that, but I think they should just look at the season as a free hit, see what you can do, what all players can be played, and maybe find a blueprint as to who they should let go, who they should keep. Keep an eye out for the players that they need to sign, all those kind of things. And yeah, I mean, top four is not out of their hands, but it's more in other teams' hands, I would say, whether they want to give it away or not.
Yeah. No, it's been a testing time. If you're a BFC fan this week, like you said, even I think Deshaun Brown's comments weren't really kind. I mean, for the lack of a better word, I mean, they're pretty direct, right? When he said, and I was surprised to know that you're the one who asked the question. But
so that whole goal.com headlines are mostly my questions only. If it's pertaining to BSC and things.
You're unearthing a few bombs, but more to the point, he said service out wide hasn't been great, which is why strikers find it difficult to score. Right? That's what he said. Right?
Yeah, but he also has played out wide weirdly.
Yeah, and very surprised to see the lineup because you had Suresh Wangjam out wide and you have Clayton Silva out wide, and I think even Coach Pratt mentioned it. None of these guys are actually wide players, right? I mean,
yeah.
Clayton.
I mean, obviously, you are surprised when you see Suresh because what you want Suresh to do is to run around, clean up things, and link the attack. He's a box-to-box player.
Yeah.
And the few times he actually came centrally, he blocked, I think, one chance from Mauricio, a header chance or something. He put him under pressure and things like that.
Yeah.
So he does his job when he's in the center. You're sort of missing the best of Suresh when you play him out wide, I think. So yeah, it is a little round pegs in square holes or the other way around.
And what's even more surprising is that Musa spent time with his kids, right? Musa knows these kids better than anyone else, right? Is that a fair assumption?
Maybe not so much Suresh because he came in and didn't really work with him an awful lot. But the rest of the boys, Amay, Parag, Namgal Bhutia, all these people, yeah, definitely.
Definitely, because my feeling is also that Clayton's best utilized through the center, right? And I think anybody who's seen him play through the center can also vouch for that. Like he's easily their best recruit this year, you would say.
Yeah, his spatial awareness is also very good. So he can play without touching the ball also, which again you lose when he plays out wide.
Maybe it's an assumption, but the frustration or the setback has really not gone on to well with even when Musa said about a player as such, they've putting the players under the bus or whatever. Like they've probably realized it much later that there were some mistakes that they've committed. But even Parth has been getting a lot on social media about the fact that he's kind of putting or pointing at players and saying they don't have a striker or they don't have certain players who are fit for the team. Is this a reaction to what the actual thing happening on the pitch, or is do we see something? I mean, is there something we don't know of?
Look, Parth is someone who has always said some really fun, like, sometimes he just says things which you generally don't expect from an owner. He doesn't probably look into it in great detail. He's just very emotional and very attached to the club and tweeted some things out. But yeah, at the end of the day, if the striker is not performing, like you can say it upset saying, okay, he's not doing well here, so he's not good enough and whatnot. Maybe he goes and proves it somewhere else. Like Deshaun Brown, if he goes and does a good job in Northeast, then who do you blame? Now we've seen that happen with Chencho, who's gone on and who did well in Indian football in the first place and come here and then had to leave again. Same can be said about Manuel Onwu also. Although he's not scoring much this year, he is assisting, and that two up top with Mauricio is actually not a bad 1-2 combo in that sense. So I mean, it's just Parth being Parth, and you really shouldn't read too much into it.
Okay, so then in that case, we leave it at that, and we see some great actions. And just like Sandeep mentioned, to make things better, we hope that the other teams don't give it away so easily, because that's the whole beauty about this particular season, that we've seen ups and downs by some of the top teams. Moving on, we spoke about BFC losing to Kerala Blasters. Let's take Kerala Blasters into now. After a win against BFC, they drew against Goa. So even one of the during the post-match discussions in ISL, I think one of them also mentioned that they've got crucial 4 points from these two big games. Arko, does Kerala Blasters finally look like the team that we expected them to under Kibu?
Well, the signs of recovery are there. It's a 4-match unbeaten run, and not 4 easy matches as well. It started with Owen Coyle's Jamshedpur, then went on to a resurgent Robbie Fowler's East Bengal. The BFC win, obviously, this is a fixture that they always look forward to, irrespective of whether there's biryani being served. And then you had a draw against Goa, right? So, I mean, to be honest, they'll be really happy with the 8 points from these 4 games, because, like I said, they weren't easy games at all. That having said, I still feel, Kibu's still, figuring out what his best combination is, due to a mixture of injuries and, let's say, downturn in form. Right? We are seeing more and more. What we're seeing is that Hooper starts in some matches. Murray is also starting in some matches. You have a midfield trio of one day Jackson and Facundo and Vicente. You have the 4 there, who are coordinating amongst themselves. So it's very interesting to see how many how many possibilities he has. But the good thing for him is that the support cast has come in handy, right? Whether it's Ritwik or Puitia or Gibson or Rohit Momo, or Saitya Sen, like everyone's coming in and doing a job for them. It's really interesting to see. And I think the most important thing for them is Rahul KP's development also, right? And I think that's a big plus for them, that the kid's playing and he's scoring, and that's something that they'll be happy about. Also, Sahal seems to have found a home on the left flank, and I think we all can safely say, when he plays well, the team plays well. He is. I know that there's a lot of spotlight on him, but he is the talisman of the team. He has that ability to produce something special, right? So it's interesting to see what are the what combinations come out, and I think against Goa, very interesting to see that Sandeep played somewhat out wide. You saw Jackson dropping into the hole. You're seeing, like Ferrando, you're seeing Kibu also come out with a lot of variation, right? And that's always a good thing for a club, because in a 20-game season, you don't have much time to experiment, right? So it's always better if you have more than one system of play.
Well, talking about Sandeep, let me ask Sandeep now. How do you think? How much of a boost is Rahul KP's and Sahal's performance for Kerala Blasters?
So I have a I'm generally a pessimistic person in life. I think Indian football has made me into a rather pessimistic human being. So when you look at Rahul KP's performance, the first goal came from a counter attack when BFC, I think they only had, who was that? Leon Agustin, I think, at the back while he was counter attacking. And if you ask me, I would say Gurpreet should have saved that goal because it hit his arm and went right through. So that is one. And the second one is again a set piece, although I give him credit for the leap and the timing of the header and all that things. But yeah, I mean, he managed to score. Now, the thing is, we've seen flash in the pans a lot of times in Indian football. People scoring 2 goals, like Kerala Blasters are also aware of a player called CK Vinith, who they pushed to the moon when he scored a couple of goals. So there is always a chance that this is something similar. So I'm not going to read too much into it. But I would say, look, he's finding ways to get points. Essentially, that's what you need from your coach. And Vicuna is doing that. And he's doing that despite having Murray is injured. Like sometimes he's tried the two striker thing because Hooper does not move. Hooper does not show for the ball often. There are times when he's so short on confidence that he's passing out wide from situations where any striker worth his salt would just put his foot through. So he's definitely not out there. Sometimes you can hide on the football field sometimes. And it seems to me that sometimes he's doing that. And even when he's in good position, 2-3 times the players, his teammates are choosing other options. So I'm not very sure how confident they are with him up front alone. But at the same time, I do like Kibu Vicuna, so I hope they give him a chance. You can see he's doing something. His midfield foreigners are good. I think Puitia, you should see a lot more of him, hopefully soon. So yeah, good things and bad things. It's a mixture. And Sahal, to be fair, right? He is the one player in India who has flair. And that's something that's very difficult to come by because not many flair players in India who can take players on, dribble past them, do fancy tricks. But what he needs to add is finishing the product to the flair. And at times we have seen him do that with a couple of assists here and there. But yeah, for me, he needs to do a lot more to be compared to someone like a Thapa or even Apuya for that matter, who is doing very well in midfield.
Great. Now let's talk about Goa. Now Goa has had back-to-back draws. They played against the draw against Kerala Blasters, of course, but before that they also had a draw against ATKMB. So Arko, I want to ask you: do you see Goa? Do you consider as them, have dropped a lot of points from these two games, or was it safe bet for taking 1 point from each?
So Goa, like Kerala, will be happy because they have a 6 match unbeaten streak in which they have 3 wins and 3 draws, 12 points from 6 matches. They'll be reasonably happy because once again Ferrando's come up with another system in which Jorge Ortiz is now the main guy, with Igor Angulo dropping to the bench. And it's very easy to see why he did that, because Angulo's not really a striker who breaks the lines, right? And in Juan's system, Angulo's only job is to pot the ball at the back of the net. Literally, the whole play happens without him getting involved. So I don't think Juan was pretty comfortable with that. The new system also worked well for him. I think they won 3-0 against Jamshedpur with Ivan scoring what I consider to be my favorite goal of the tournament so far, simply because of how breathtaking it was, start to finish. They lost to ATK last time around. There was a contentious penalty. Ortiz didn't get it. They'll be happier with the 1-1 draw, but they knew that they could have won both games, both Kerala and Goa. They could have won, right? The important thing for them is that they're still in the top 4, but Northeast win means that the gap with the top 4 is much more closer. They're only now 2 points clear of 5th place Northeast, right? And Northeast seems to be rejuvenated under Khalid Jamil. So it's a testing time for them, right? They're 4 points behind ATK, but you have to say that Mumbai and ATK are the favorites to finish 1 and 2, right? So 7 games. I feel if one can get 3 or 4 wins out of these 7 games, then they're confirmed top 4, right? And we're seeing a league in which there are a lot of draws, so they won't be overtly concerned, right? What would have concerned them is if they had lost to ATK a second time, then they would have said, we lost to ATK tamely. first time around also we lost to ATK, second time also, so then there might have been some panic bells. And Kerala is the team, is a resurgent team. You know that, Kibu plays a style which is also not too dissimilar to Ferrando's, so I don't think they'll be sad. But yeah, I think the games that they will look forward to is facing Mumbai City, Hyderabad, and if I remember, Northeast and Chennai gave them a torrid time, right? So they'd want to set that record straight also.
Sandeep, do you think the draws this season has been due to the probably the fatigue coming in and shortest preseason, or also do you see the draws as a good tactic for teams to go by, and is it helping the league in such I don't know, as such that the teams are able to probably increase their increase their winless streak kind of a thing?
I'm sure all of them play a part because obviously a lot of late goals, so it stands to reason that fatigue plays a part. Maybe a longer preseason would mean more fitter players, so that is an argument you can throw. And there is also, I feel like when you look at a team like Chennai or Hyderabad, they have the highest XG per game in the league. They create the most number of chances, and they should have scored, I think, around 2 goals a game. But both are absolutely, especially Chennai, and it feels more so than Hyderabad. I think maybe because some of the results have favored Hyderabad. It's just they don't convert chances. Whether that's the Indian players not being able to finish off the chances given to them, because both these teams have a lot of good Indian players playing in midfield and out wide, and the foreign striker for Jakub Silvestre, definitely not so much Aridane, because he's a little more different sort of a striker. Louis Sastry maybe can be put in that. So maybe it's also the sharpness is not there, and they're playing quickly 3-4 days in quick rotation. I mean, it just feels like a combination of everything, and also the bubble, because today when I was talking to Musa for the pre-match press conference for Bengaluru, he mentioned the fatigue of the bubble as well being a factor, because generally they get to play in front of the fans, the supporting fans and the away fans who would want you to lose, so you draw energy from them, and it's a real thing. Like, it's sort of a symbiotic relationship at times when you go to a stadium. The energy that the fans feed the players when they're driving them on, or sometimes when the other team scores and at their home team, just the whole atmosphere is killed, all these kind of things. So I think these everything play a factor. So it's tough to pinpoint one as a leading one. But yeah, I think, is there more draws this season than the years before? I mean, I don't know.
It certainly feels that way though.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see why Siju feels that way, because I also felt that way, because now every third match is a draw. So I mean, can certainly see. Let me just pull up a quick stat from last year, right?
Yeah, while you do that, I'll probably get it going again with Sandeep itself. Sandeep, talking about Northeast United, right? From the time they've got that 1-1 draw with BFC, and then the sacking happened, and Khalid Jamil took over, and we all know beloved Khalid Bhai. He came in and he's got back-to-back wins and some big wins. I mean, because Jamshedpur also looking strong, looking good in the season, and they got a 2-1 victory over Jamshedpur. And well, we are recording this on a Wednesday, and last night we saw a great game between Northeast and ATKMB. Again, a late goal from Northeast to win 2-1. Sandeep, this clearly shows Northeast are in it for, they are, though in the middle they kind of dropped off. They look like this team is back.
Yeah, it does seem that way, but again, I'm not going to read too much into it but after 2 games, because Jamshedpur win was probably a good win. Having said that, Jamshedpur has been sort of, sliding down. I don't think they've won a game in the last 3 or 4. I think they lost 3 and drew 1 in the last 5, if I'm not mistaken. But either way, the results have not been great. And against against ATK, if you see that the winner came from an absolute beauty from Gallego, which is sort of it's not a goal that you see teams score quite often. It's like an individual brilliance. Khalid is this coach who's able to coax the best out of his players. Like, as a journalist or as a fan, you may not like him, his antics and the way he is because he comes across as somebody who's uninterested in talking and things like that. But as a coach, every single player who's worked under him has absolutely loved him. So he creates that kind of an ambience where players can flourish. So I think that might bode well for the team.
Especially for Northeast, right? I mean, for Northeast, it's exactly the sort of ambience that you need to really get things done there. Because I mean, we've seen a lot of meltdowns there over the years. So yeah, I mean, kudos to Khalid for the mini turnaround. But I think, like Sandeep said, we'll hold our horses before we before we really go into we go into hailing him as the savior of Indian football.
Well, Arko, do we have the stats that you were wanting to look up?
Yeah,
Draws.
I mean, so I might be wrong because I think I did it in a hurry. But last year I think there were 26 draws, right? And there were 90 games played, and there were 26 draws. And by my estimates there already been 28 draws this year. There already been 28, and we still have like quarter of the campaign at least to be played. A little more over quarter, I said about 2/5 of the campaign. 40% of the campaign to be played. So yeah, I mean, the draw is definitely higher, and it's interesting to see where the cutoff will come. Usually, 10-team league, my prediction always that 30 is the magic number. If you get 30 points, you're in the top 4. Let me just start from the time that it became a 10-team league, right? Yeah, so when Pune City finished. When Pune City finished 4th in 2017, they had 30 points, right? That's an average of 1.66 points every game, right? And the next year it was Northeast who had 29 points, right? Northeast who had 29 points, and last year also Chennai finished 4th with 29 points. So pretty much if you extrapolate that 1.66 value, you're seeing that 33 or 34 would usually be the magic mark to make the top 4, right? And right now Hyderabad's on 18, but because of the large number of draws, I'm going to take a step back and say maybe 32 also might be enough. 32 or maybe 31 also might be enough, because we're seeing like a huge number of draws. So just an interesting prediction that I'm coming with. We actually may be wrong, right? And we might just see the top 4 pull away from the rest. Who knows?
Absolutely. Now, talking about the top 4, another team that is in the top 4 at the moment, but has had not a very good run in the past couple of games. And you're talking about ATKMB. They definitely lost against Northeast United, but they also have not had a great encounter. The last one they did play and they did win 1-0 to Chennai, but we knew who the better side on the pitch was, and they had a draw against Goa. Before that they lost to Mumbai City. So Sandeep, somewhere ATKMB are slipping away, or with you considering Habas's side, they will definitely cement their position very well where they are at the moment?
Well, ATK is interesting, right? In that this is a team, if you look at it, I was again going back to some statistics, their XG is the lowest in the league. I think their XG is lower than East Bengal, who's the second lowest. I think they have 1.2 and they have 1 or something like that. So this is a team that has always maximized every single goal that they scored. Most of their wins will be 1-0 or 2-0 or 2-1 or things like that. They don't score that many goals. And maybe over the course of the season, the law of averages is just slightly catching up to them, because now you can see that the goals are not coming as easily. And when the other team does score, like even if it's like a Gallego goal which comes out of nowhere and it's not something that you concede every day, it takes away your points, because it either takes away 2 points or it takes away 3 points. So I think the law of averages is sort of catching on to them. I heard a rumor that Marcelinho was going to ATKMB. I don't know how true that is. Maybe they're trying, and I cannot understand the transfer if it is true, because Marcelinho is not a Habas player. But maybe they're trying to add more creativity. I don't know. It just seems, for the way I look at it, is just that they don't create enough chances to score as many goals. So maybe that's just coming up to bite them now. Especially now, more and more teams, like let's say Northeast, they told them you play with the ball, and then suddenly they don't really know what to do. because they're so used to allowing the other team and hitting on the break and fast breaks and all these kind of half chances being converted and things. So when they're suddenly been asked to play and dominate the football, they can't do it as well. So maybe teams are also finding out how to force them to play in a manner that is uncomfortable for them.
Actually, interestingly, on ATKMB's account, right? Only Chennai and East Bengal have scored fewer goals this year, but only Mumbai City has conceded fewer goals than ATK also, right? So it's pretty much like you said, the pattern from last season that's continuing. But yeah, in the last 6 matches, they only had 2 wins, right? As opposed to 4 in their first, 5 in their first 7. So yeah, there's somewhere they've slowed down. And what happens with ATK is that when Habas's press breaks down, right? Habas's gameplay has a lot to do with the press in midfield, right? When they're first playing against Goa, I saw that they have a what is the right word for it? Triangle press, if you want to call it, where there is one free man between the first 2 lines, and that one free man sometimes adds to Williams and Krishna's pressing up front, so that becomes 3 people pressing. Sometimes he drops back to the to the midfield 3, that makes 4 people. So I think Habas use this pretty well, and I will still say that it's tough to break them down. But yeah, I mean, credit to Northeast because they had both Machado and Gallego. And Gallego, obviously, good goal. But I think Machado also deserves credit. And for me, he's really been one of the standout players of this season.
What did you make of that shoulder push? Did you think it was a foul?
No, I think it was legit. I think it was fine. Right? I think Tiri went down, and I think referee was well within his rights to not give the shoulder push. I mean, that's what I felt. Obviously, I'm not as well versed with the laws as a referee himself, but I mean, I felt that was okay.
Yeah, me too. I thought, it would have been given. I would have been fine. If it's not given, that's also fine. It's like one of those.
Yeah, it's one of those decisions, one of those decisions. But it on seeing the replay, right? On seeing the replay, it did feel like he did jut his arm out a bit, right? I mean, shoulder push is fine, but the moment the fist or the or the elbow, anything gets involved, then it becomes an illegal challenge, right? So it did feel like he was leaning into him, but the referee gave it, and that's that. Just to add to ATK, while we're on the topic, they're grouped with Mazia from Maldives, Basundhara Kings, heavyweights from Bangladesh, champions, and one more playoff winner. If that's BFC, then we have a cracking group because we have the champions of India, Bangladesh and Maldives, and we have a continental heavyweight, someone who's always done well at the continental level, maybe barring a couple of years. But yeah, so should be very interesting to see how ATK when we get on in their campaign, in the AFC Cup.
Absolutely. I mean, it looks like a great mouth-watering encounter to look forward to. And just like Arko mentioned, if BFC can have that win the playoff and come in, and that would be a cracker of a game for group to look forward to, and some great matches there. Continuing with our ISL, we have one more team that we look forward to. That is Mumbai City FC, who are 4 points clear as of now. But when we spoke about the team in depth, and I think when we had Shlok on the show, he mentioned that somewhere probably the match against Hyderabad has put the question mark on Mumbai City, whether they can continue their form and everything. And since then, it's not been very great. They played against East Bengal. Yes, they did get a 1-0 win, but East Bengal were a better side on that day. And then they had a 1-1 draw against Chennai. And so, Sandeep, Mumbai City, yes, they look fairly a great team out there, and they're on top. Might they continue that top of the table stint as well? But do you see somewhere they've dropped their steam, or is it just a hiccup?
I personally think it's just a hiccup. It's also that they've been so dominant and they've been basically walking the league for a while. That they thought, maybe it takes the steam out of the team a little bit. On top of that, I don't think they've had some injury issue or the other, Gumu coming in and out, or someone or the other not being available for the game. So I don't think they've put on a absolute first 11 as such in a while, in a few games. I think they've been chopping and changing a little bit. Mandar didn't play the last game, I think. So, all these kind of things. But generally, I think they'll be fine because, they are probably the most well equipped to deal with the injuries and things like that. So they should be fine only. I don't see any major problem. I keep hearing people saying they're not playing as fluid as before, but maybe they're also a little bit tired and maybe slowing things down so that they can, come back and concentrate a lot more on the playoffs. And that said, I feel like Ahmad Jahu might be getting close to his sell-by date because he just seems to. Is he worthy a hassle? Is something that I keep wondering because he gets the yellow. I think he got 2 red cards this season already, and did some like a child, like what you see sometimes when you're playing with a 10-year-old, you fool around in the thing, no? That kind of a maneuver in the box and lost the ball, which ended with the equalizer. So when they played against ATK Mohun Bagan, they had Rainier and Rowling sitting. So is it that big of a loss to not have Bumu? And I asked the coach also this after the game, and he had a small smile when he was talking about what all Bumu gives you in possession. But he was very clear that off possession he has to improve. And this is a player who's in his prime, or in 30 or 30 years, 28, whatever age he's in. He's not a young player who can now, I think, change the way he plays. He's just that. He's a hothead. And 2 years ago, I remember Carles Cordet saying that Bumu's inability to deal with the situation and keep his emotions. If you see the final, he made that unnecessary tackle for the red card on Miku. His reaction was bad. So this is something that you expect from him. At some point, it's diminishing returns. I don't think we are quite there yet, but maybe it's starting to come.
And I think I did mention this point at the start of when we started the whole podcast for this season, that Goa really won't sweat over either Jahu or Mandar, right? The one person that they will miss is Bumu, and Bumu's carried on his form, to be fair to him, so it's very clear. But I kind of agree with your point about Jahu, that he has a tendency to, let's say, sometimes put his team in trouble, and it definitely cost them the 3 points against Chennai. But having said that, right, I actually don't think Mumbai had that convincing a campaign as the table shows, because if you remember second match, they were a man up against Goa, but then again it was pretty even, right? And they needed like a last minute penalty to scrape against them. Against Hyderabad, I think Manolo's tactics were like spot on, right? What do you say? I think Hyderabad actually played better than them in that match, and definitely, if not for, let's say, their strikers finishing the chances, they could actually won this match, right? So yeah, I see the table. I see that Mumbai is up there, but and I think Coach Pratt also mentioned this on commentary also. You can get at them. You can, there are small gaps and this thing that you just have to exploit, right? So the matches that I'm really looking forward to them is to see if Juan's kind of figured out if Goa can break those chinks in armors. Obviously Hyderabad, the 2 games are over, but I think again the Northeast versus Mumbai clash, if I'm not wrong, is yet to be played, the second leg, right? So yeah, that too.
Yeah, definitely going ahead, it looks even more interesting than when we probably when we are at the start of the ISL. But finally, I think I think we're almost done with looking at the ISL teams. We'll come back to the matches to look forward to. Now it's time that we shift our focus to I-League a bit, because even there we had some great games
Can
to
I
look
just
at.
say something about East Bengal?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Because I have this theory, and yesterday I was talking about this, that everybody agrees that East Bengal plays very well, with a lot of heart, and they fight, and a lot of the things about them are good, the way they play. But breaking it down to a science, so to say, to bear essentials of numbers. They don't create good enough chances to win games. They don't. It's their XG is the second lowest, like I mentioned earlier, 1.2 or something. And a lot of the time, a lot of the shots they take are from outside the box. They have extremely good player in Bright, who I think is too good for this league. But he sort of showboats a little bit. I think he can be a lot more effective with the skill that he has. Then they have Mogoma and Stayman also, who's very good. Pilkington looks like he's doing a lot of things, but I think he has one goal and some 35 shots or something. So, and out of them coming out of the box. And their shot conversion is in the low percentages, 9 point something or the other. So they are not doing that great in terms of creating actual great quality chances that you can legitimately go and say they'll win. Like even the Bombay game, even the Mumbai City game, they played better in the second half, but was there a chance that, like, if you look at it, can you say two chances where you were like, this is guaranteed goal and they missed? There's not that many. It's like, oh, it flashed by, or the corner went past everyone, or, things like that. And probably someone should have added it in, and all these kind of things. And not really concrete chances. And at the same time, defensively, I think they are one of the worst numbers. I'm not exactly sure about the number. I'll just check. I think they have goals conceded. They are up there with they have 17 goals that they've conceded. Only Kerala Blasters and Odisha has conceded more. Bangalore, Jamshedpur also 17. So they concede a lot more also. And Devjit has had a good season. In spite of this, they've conceded that much. So at some point, Fowler has to stop looking at the referee, has to stop complaining about the whole world being against him, and Mace has to stop throwing him lines of, your team has great fighting spirit and things like that. Look at the number. They are a team that is going to take a long time to improve because their Indian contingent was not great. Their preseason started late. They recruited, maybe not completely sure that they were going into the ISL when they started with a lot of the players. The turnaround in players has been great. Now you look at the forward line, they've tried Harman, they've tried JJ, they've tried CK Vinith. So they've had so many people in and around in that lineup, and they keep chopping and changing. Eugene does not feature anymore. Then they bought in now a new batch of players. Samad, I think they let go. And Reno never featured in the first place. So a lot of the signings and the Indian contingent don't look that great. And it's an absolute indictment of what Robbie Fowler thinks of JJ, that he's not even featuring anywhere close to the starting lineup or the coming off the bench to change games, because they really need people to score goals. So this squad is not built up. So I'm not actually blaming Fowler or saying that accountability and things like that, but they really do need to look at the finer print. And the Mayfield also has to stop throwing away lollipops and Manakachaming questions to his favorite coaches.
Now, if you guys need a translation to what actually he just mentioned, you can DM Sandeep or any of us. We will give it to you. Or let's just say that only the Mallus will enjoy what he just said. Arko, do you have any thoughts to add on about East Bengal?
No, I couldn't understand what Sandeep said, so I would have to DM him probably on that.
So basically, Onakachamin is like this. The lollipop you throw, when you're playing cricket and all, you throw that underarm ball that you hit it, man. You hit it for a six, that type.
It's something we used to do as kids, for sure. I actually pretty much agree with Sandeep that, that it's remarkable. Actually, East Bengal are even here because we saw what happened to Hyderabad after they were hastily assembled last year, right? So, we are yet to see if, Robbie Fowler is still worth the hype, but they've turned it around. They've still, let's say, how long has it been since they lost back-to-back matches? A long time, I think. I think 9 matches and 1 loss. They'll take it, I think, and I think they'll just have to build on from here. We have to get better Indians next year. And if they can keep the core of the foreigners better, I think at the start of season also we had said that they're getting some really good foreigners. So and it's proved to be that. And like I said, Bright, possibly the best player in this league alongside Ortiz. You have Anthony Pilkington, who the fans absolutely love. They call him Pilkuda. And Magoma is also a favorite, even though it looks like he glides through games sometimes. He's also a favorite. Maybe they might bring in foreign defensive reinforcements, but more or less, I feel that, this season is as good as they could have expected it to be. And if they don't finish, bottom 2 or bottom 3, they'll be happy, I feel.
Yeah, they definitely had a good run of undefeated games, which came to a standstill when they faced Mumbai City, and Mumbai City took that 1-0. Now, let's move on with the I-League matches, and we had some good games there as well. But there were 5 matches, as they every week does, and I'll start with Aizawl. Aizawl went on a 1-1 draw against Indian Arrows. Arko, we did mention about how Aizawl, we spoke about it in the first week, right? That they were not literally converting those chances that they were getting, and something similar against Indian Arrows as well. Where do you think they're still lacking in terms of getting those goals or getting those chances converted and done?
So it's surprising, right? I mean, they've really not used, they've not really used Princeville Emeka. And I mean, you can see why they use Princeville Emeka, because I mean he struggled a bit. They're creating chances, but they don't seem to be putting them off, and I think that bit them in the ass against Arrows. Sorry for my language, but yeah. More importantly, I feel that they will have to try and try and convert those chances, because I mean, because of the format, they might slip very fast, right? So they have to try and pick up some points. Otherwise, they're staring down the barrel.
Sandeep, the first match at Chennai City, after that they kind of look like they're slipping away. They lost to Trout 2-0. So what do you see there? I mean, will we see that because of the certain players not being fully fit for them or fully available, or is it something to do with they are yet not up to the mark?
The match against Trau was actually very surprising, because Trau is a team who does not defend crosses well, and Chennai is a team who actually dribbles a lot to the wide areas and tries to send crosses in. So that was a little surprising, but again, they don't have, I mean, they've had some issues, right, with the COVID and things. The only team who had to deal with all that. And they also have issues with the left side of their defense, with Charles Anandraj and Elvedin, who's a centre back, Serbian centre back. There are some concerns over there. So I think that day was just a good day for Trau and a bad day for Chennai. And generally, I think it's too early to say anything about all this, because Chennai has only played 3 games, of which they won 1, and one was a game against Real Kashmir, who was supposed to be one of the contenders, and they didn't have essentially 4 players with them. So I think I'll cut them some slack, but you would think they have some, continuity in the way they're playing with a lot of players and a similar style of philosophy and things like that. But yeah, it's slightly surprising, but difficult to say anything so early.
Well, moving on from there, but sticking with Chennai City now, since they're talking about it, do you see them coming back to their form as they play Indian Arrows next?
Sure, yeah, why not? I mean, anybody can make form playing against Indian Arrows. So yeah, I don't see any problem. And Chennai also has this ability to play players all over the place. Like, take example of Shankar Sambankiraj. He can play centre back as he's doing now. He can play centre midfield. He can play slightly out wide also if need be. And they've always had players who has been able to play multiple positions and rotate and things of that nature. Like, you look at the history of the players that they've sent out. Susai Raj easily managed to play as a left wing back also. Edwin Sydney Vanspaul, who can do the same. Ajit Kumar, who can play up front on the wing as well as on the defensive side. So they'll just make some adjustment and find someone who can fill in the blanks and go from there. And Arrows is younger than normal, which I think I don't know what that exactly means in an Indian football context. So they're younger than normal, but they didn't have the exposure tours and etc. that the previous generation has had. Previous iteration of Arrows have had, and they are very, very susceptible to errors. The Parai, who's the defender, is susceptible to errors. The 2 goalkeepers, I think Ahan is better, but having said that, all 3 of them are quite susceptible to making mistakes. So I would think, they would bounce back in that game.
The other 2 matches, well, Churchill had a great outing against Sudeva. They won 2-0, and Punjab drew against Mohammedan SC. We still are in a very early stage to talk about all the teams, but we probably going ahead, we'll see some great action from Mohammedan SC and hopefully from Punjab as well. Mohammedan SC also has some 2 foreign signings yet to join them, so hopefully we see some good football from Black Panthers. Well, moving on to Gokulam Kerala FC now, who won 4-1 against Neroka FC. Well, they've been scoring a lot of goals even against Chennai City. We saw like it was a high scoring match, and same against Neroka. Arco, coming to you, Neroka still, I mean, do they look like a team to fight for, or like I earlier mentioned, that is it too early to judge them?
Oh, I think we just have to wait for a couple of more game weeks, So I feel between Neroka, Trau, and Aizawl, it's I mean, I don't want to say it, but it's very likely that one of the teams, might end up in the bottom half, and that Sudeva and Arosa aren't going to be relegated. So it's really tough, man. It's really tough to call it. I would say that Neroka slightly better prepared than the two, but the way Trau have started, right? They look like they're generally going to upset the top half predictions, right? So they might sneak into the top half, and one of the more fancied teams, it could be Mohammedan, it could be Punjab, it could be any of those guys. They might actually fall below. So I would say just wait, because we spoke with Richard where he said these guys are always cohesive. They're always following a comprehensive approach. They're always playing together. So it's always tough to beat teams from there. So I say, we should wait a couple of, match days before making that prediction. But as of now, I mean, Trau are the ones, really surprising me with their results, And I'd say Punjab on the other spectrum are the ones who were expected to do slightly better, and let's see, they might just turn it around. They're not out of it yet, but they've also had tough few fixtures to start with.
Absolutely. Now, talking about Gokulam Kerala FC, Sandeep, though they had some 2 good results on the pitch, we're not hearing some good news from them off the pitch. If you can just probably take us through and let us know in brief what's happening with them.
Okay, so I'll start with the pitch then, no?
Sure.
Yeah, so on the pitch, they feel like they can do something this year. But again, their goalkeeper is not good enough. Sharif is not good enough, but I think they brought Ubaid in the last game and they've sort of improved a little bit. They get very exciting. The front line is very good, but they're very dependent on Antwi and Adja and Emil Benny also in the build-up and to get them those goals. Defense, it seems at times that they go attacking and they forget that they have to defend also. Deepak Devrani has been good for the team as well, so that also helps. But yeah, it's still not completely convinced by them, because the games that they actually did win maybe wasn't really against the cream of the crop, let's say, to play in the sense that they beat Round Glass Punjab, who on that day looked all over the place in defense, and they were already, I think, 3 goals down, and allowed them to come back. Neroka also was no great shakes in the game, so I'll hold off any any comments on them. The other side of the pitch is a little disturbing, right? And being a Gokulam supporter, I feel a little hurt by this as well. That so they've been, obviously everyone must have read it, that there's some transfer issues and proposed transfer ban and all that's been going on. So essentially, they have to pay. So it all started with the player Malingam Maiti, whose contract was sort of terminated by the club unilaterally, it would seem, and without any just cause. And you can't do that generally. And he had, I think, a couple of years more left in his contract. And this all came out in the open, and AIFF has, trying to set a precedence and things like that. And the player status committee had meetings a couple of times, and they've put a fine also on 18 lakh mitigation fine on them, which they have to pay within 30 days. Of the time, I think, when Maiti would have shown his bank balance and things. So, it's not a great time. It also shows I think at one point it shows a good thing about it, the good thing about such things coming out is like people should know what kind of situation their players outside are dealing with. Like you can see on Twitter and things like that, people talking about players earning in crores and the market value in crores and things. It's not the reality. The ground reality of Indian football is that there are a handful of players who are able to earn crores. And that too, the crores that you see, like let's say if someone is signed for a 5 crore deal, it's not for a 5 crore for a year. It's 5 crore over how many ever years that is. If it's like 5 years, then it's like a crore per year. I'm not saying that's a bad amount of money, but it's just the reality is absolutely distorted by what people see on TV and what you hear from people saying. Like the commentator saying that we are fighting toe to toe with the A-League in terms of salary cap and all. It's all bullshit. Because beyond the top 2-3 teams who are overpaying and destroying the market, the rest of the reality is this only. Like Premier League has parachute payments to ensure that the league structure survives. In India, there is no such thing. I-League survives because some people are willing to put in the money that they earn for personal reasons, or maybe just to see, because they are like the Northeast clubs, they are fans of the game, they want to do well and things like that. But a lot of the players don't earn those much money. Like they earn 20,000, 30,000 rupees per month, which is like a normal salary. And the worst thing is once they get injured, they may never be able to come back to that level again. They may not be able to earn that money also. Unlike say an IT guy who, if he gets hurt for 3 months, he can work from home and then come back and change jobs and find something else. So for them, the tool is a body, right? And there's no guarantee in this sport. So it just shows like clubs cannot unilaterally do this. Like you cannot mistreat your players. And we've seen this so many times in the last 2 years, the contract disputes, the way Norum was handled in Kerala Blasters. And this is even worse because you signed him on a 3-year deal. He would have planned his life accordingly also at some point and be assured that money is coming, and then to cut a contract for no reason. And generally you cut with mutual consent. You try to move him on loan or find him a new club and things like that to help him out. But yeah, this is just an absolutely terrible way to deal with the situation. And absolute ground reality of the players that play the game, because the pyramid is sustained by the lower levels. ISL is 11 teams who can give employment to, let's say, 25 players each, which is really not much in terms of the whole ecosystem. So yeah, it's just very sad the way the clubs are being run. Absolutely, it's quite terrible.
Well, at least we have some footballing action to look at, and which just keeps us going. But just as Sandeep mentioned, the good part about such news coming out is that we should know that this is a reality and not get too carried away with what commentators have to say or certain social media handles have to say. Now to conclude, I think we had a great game. Arko, do you want to say something?
Yeah, news just coming in about Goa's Champions League draw, and wow, it does not look great. Goa have been drawn against last season's Persepolis from Iran.
Oh, amazing.
It's going to be a tough one. They're also playing against the runners-up of Qatar, Al Rayyan. Again, difficult prospect. And the last team in their group is going to be the winners of, between Al Wada from UAE and Al Zawra from Iraq. And we know teams from Iraq because they've caused Indian clubs so much heartbreak in the past, especially Air Force and all of that. So, man, some absolutely mouth-watering clashes to look forward to. But if I was a Goa fan, I'd head off to the nearest church or temple or mosque or whatever right now, because it's a staggered draw against them. It's tough. I
love this. We get to see the Champions League finalists. I mean, this is always going to be a free hit, right, for Indian clubs. It's not like we're going to do anything there. Might as well play against the best teams. Let's watch them play. And see how far we have come and how much more we have to go. The thing
to consider is that the top 10 teams top 8 or 10 teams get a direct slot according to the new rules, and India's 8th in the West. So India does not perform well. I mean, all of India's teams who play the AFC, the average will be taken, right? So India does not perform well. They could very well slip below the automatic qualification spot for AFCCL, right? That's the only reason that Indian teams have to do well. I mean, one of the, I think, AFC Cup teams have to perform. But they did expand. I mean, the AFC did expand their Champions League
Sure.
to 40 teams, which is why we are seeing. And it's not just India. I think Hong Kong got a spot. Kichi. You had Tampines Rovers who also got a spot. The problem for India is that they're the newest entrants in the West. If it's the East, you could still see them getting something. But yeah, there are no easy groups in the AFCCL. For example, I think Tampines Rovers have been drawn against Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors, Gamba Osaka, and Sydney FC. Again, that is not a group they want to be in, right? Yeah, man.
And
like
I wanted to see Kobe, Vissel Kobe, dude. I was hoping to see Iniesta.
But India were always in the West. They would never have
correct,
faced
yeah.
teams. They would never have faced teams in the East. But like all of you guys have heard, it's a tough draw.
Well, definitely, and I think the word that even I was looking for is what Arko mentioned. He mentioned that mouth-watering matches to look forward. I just want to say that mouth-watering news to end the show with. That's absolutely brilliant, right? I mean, I think you need a minute to shake yourself off from it, and then say, okay, let's get going with this, and let's conclude on that note, and let's look at some games. It'll be a one-line thing to both of them. I've picked some few games that we're looking forward to in ISL and I-League. What I want from you both is you have to pick a winner. Even if it's a draw, you just mention it'll be a draw. Okay, we don't get into the details. We keep it very precise into who's your winner from these games. So I'll start with ISL games. Goa is next playing East Bengal on Friday, and this episode you will be listening to on Friday. So Arko, I'll start with you. Goa versus East Bengal. We spoke about the previous games. We spoke about both the teams in detail. Who's your winner in this match?
My heart says Goa, but my head says going to be a draw.
Okay.
I'll go with the draw.
Sandeep. Okay.
Goa.
Sandeep. Okay. The next match we're looking at is an encounter that we are all looking forward to, considering both the teams' performance in the past matches. That's Northeast United versus Mumbai City FC. Sandeep, who's your winner in this?
Mumbai.
Arko?
Draw.
Okay, that's just you're just increasing the number of draws just because we spoke about it. Anyway, let's move on. The next game that I have is ATK MB versus Kerala Blasters. Arko, a winner. Come on.
Yeah, ATK MB.
Okay, Sandeep.
Draw.
Great. It's like, are you guys going to like compensate for each other? Huh? The last match in ISL, which is going to be played on Tuesday. I mean, the last match that I'm picking for the show is East Bengal versus BFC. Sandeep, a winner. Come on,
Draw.
not a draw, please. Arko.
Maybe East Bengal.
Great. Let's look at I-League fixtures now. We already spoke about Chennai and Arrows. Sandeep mentioned it. Now Churchill has also been, having good encounters, so good outings rather. So Churchill is playing Trau, who also having a great, decent few matches. Arko, a winner in this?
Churchill.
Okay, Sandeep.
Which was a Churchill and?
Trau.
Draw.
Yeah, Churchill.
Okay, and then you have Neroka versus Aizawl. Sandeep.
Aizawl.
Arko, do we finally see Aizawl taking this?
Draw.
Oh, come on, guys. Okay, the final game, I think probably everyone's looking forward to, barring the off-the-pitch news. But GKFC, Gokulam Kerala FC, play Real Kashmir, whom we've already termed Real Kashmir to be up there as a contender. Sandeep, who's your winner in this?
Real Kashmir. I don't see them concede.
Okay, Arko.
Real Kashmir. I'd have to go with.
And we have some great matches to look forward to, and that brings us to the end of this episode number 10 of the Totally Indian Football Show. And just as a start, I mentioned Sandeep is looking forward to a big day next week. So because of that, he would be on a break and he won't be joining us. Sandeep,
Not next week, the week after.
A week after, but yeah, I mean, he'll be, when I mentioned next week, as I said, because he won't be part of the show as well. So best wishes, Sandeep. You're getting married is what?
Oh, actually, no, I'll be good because I'm working from home.
Okay.
To all the listeners, congratulations to Mr. and Mrs. Menon. And if you're in and around the Kozhikode area, I don't know if Sandeep wants to. Sorry, Alappuzha area. Alipi area, I don't know if Sandeep wants to invite you, but he's invited me for biryani, and I'm going to take him up on that offer sooner or later for sure.
Well, probably you should join us from your wedding day itself. Send us some clips or talk about it. Do a podcast. Join us on the podcast.
But the thing is, there is nothing much to do, so I'll be watching football.
The Totally Indian Football Podcast. The Totally Indian Football Wedding. The Totally Indian Football Wedding, we could call it. Yeah.
Yeah. Great, guys. Thank you so much, Sandeep and Narko, for joining us. And I mean, as always, it's a pleasure talking both of you, hearing from both of you about the updates and all that's happening in Indian football. It's always a pleasure to talk about Indian football, though it has comes with its own glitches. But hey, we are all involved in it and doing our part. Thank you so much to all our listeners who've been showering upon love. Continue to do so, guys. We are available on audio platforms like Spotify and Apple. Please subscribe and show us a love. Do listen, do tune in. It may be a little long, but I'm assuring you it's not boring. So do take time and listen to our episodes. We are also available on the Humans of Indian Football YouTube channel, so you can even listen to the podcast there as well. I'm your host, Siju Matthew. Thank you so much for tuning into the episode number 10 of the Totally Indian Football Show. See you.